From the traditional view of ontology, Habermas claims that truth only functions on the condition that the will to truth prevalent within it remains hidden, as if there is not only one singular way of truth, but also one singular way to discover truth. This is obviously what Immanuel Levinas calls the ontological imperialism, so that whoever holds this position will be the only authority to power. Habermas seems to imply that the validity of Foucault's archaeological approach is only considered true and false within that discourse, as if true and false should only be considered within the traditional ontological discourse.
You always have to go back to the basic views of Foucault to look at Foucault's basic ground that he constructed to make a statement. One of the most important fundamental structure of his ground is the idea of a doubleness that associated with the discourse that you carry on. Now you have another problem. And within the discourse, now you have a linguistic problem because your language is not accurate or sufficient enough to deliver the meaning and content and the messages you're trying to pass on. Habermas drags everything, keeps mentioning Foucault's idea, will to truth, as if we're talking about the will to truth. But in reality is that even this idea of will to truth is doubled. It's not the singular way. So we're not talking anything in a singular way, but Habermas bundles everything together. He purposefully omits the most important part, which is the ground Foucault provided for everybody and for himself to have a fair discussion. So once you take the ground out, then forget it. But to establish his own authority in the argument, and which is most scholars' trick, you disregard or you manipulate the view to your readers. You can't manipulate the trained scholars, but you can fool the general readers. Like Habermas, the way he talks for 99% of readers makes sense. Once you go through his verbiage, you truly understand what he's trying to say. And say, yeah, that makes sense, because that's his whole point. He constructs this discourse with his special designed technical terms and to trap you there, to make you work really hard to get through that at first. And then once you get through his verbiages, you're already exhausted. And you're automatically surrender to his authority because he uses the verbiage to work you out. You don't have any power to reason anymore. You can't see anything. If you say, wait, there's something missing here, and you can't talk about the will to truth, or you can't talk about any Foucault's issue without the basic ground. For instance, the idea of genealogy and the idea of archaeology, those are Foucault's devices, which are specially structured devices. The idea of archaeology here Foucault is using is not the word we know. The word genealogy is the same way. Foucault constitutes his own definition of genealogy and archaeology. He does not trust the idea of genealogy or archaeology. He did not use traditional sense of these two terms. But he uses these words as two devices to serve his own argument. His argument is that our given knowledge of anything, history, or rather to say genealogy, a form of history, archaeology, a form of investigation of something. The traditional view, how do we record our history? How do we carry on our tradition? Our view of genealogy are highly unreliable. The history we're giving is questionable. If we say the French Revolution, idea of democracy, Foucault immediately going to say, oh, we don't have the same understanding. Because he's thinking the idea of a doubleness, that our knowledge has been fabricated. So we fabricated our history and we fabricate our knowledge. How to resolve the issue? The issue is that you question the genealogy, which is how each period of time, how those things are constructed and delivered to us. How you do that? You go with a kind of archaeological method. You not just go vertical, one way straight, which is what typically our Western scholarship does. vertical, a linear, progressive. You need to expand horizontally. That's what archaeology does. You go dig out something. You don't just look at that thing it means to history and to itself. You go for that whole layer of earth. What happened during that time? And then you find other related issues that you use those other related issues to examine that single item that you discover. If that's the case, if you just argue about how to use genealogy or archaeology, you miss the target. If you put Habermas, the way he talks is verbiage. All this discussion on the ground that Foucault provided for us, none of it doesn't make any sense anymore because Foucault already questioned everything and everything we believe as true, as the speaking subject or in the virtual world. Then what else can be valid? Nothing is valid because everything is virtual. And that's where the problem begins. Habermas does not get in there. He uses the common traditional ground trying to discuss Foucault's theory. Obviously, he can poke many holes. So obviously it's misguiding. That's the problem.